This is The Playlist. My name is Kalisha, and today I have a special guest joining me. She's a little bit different than a lot of the rappers I've had on this show. Her name is Michelle Majors. What's going on?
Hi, Kalisha.
How are you? Look, we've been having a ball before we started this interview. She got all my personal information, well, personal business, not information. I didn't give her my social security number, nothing crazy or address. But we've been having a ball. It's so nice to have you here. And first and foremost, let me just say your voice is amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me.
Of course. So for those of you that, are just getting familiar with Michelle Majors now, go ahead and tell them, a little bit about yourself and the genre of music that you do, because it's a little different.
Yeah. So a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
I moved to Los Angeles about 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I do pop jazz.
Yeah. So what is pop jazz? Let's get into it.
So I always had a very, jazzy texture to my voice. Mm-hmm. It's the melodies that I do in my songs, and it's also very soulful. But it's not just plain jazz. Mm-hmm. There's a pop element to it, and I like to think that comes from a lot of the influences that I had growing up. The people that I would listen to is a wide variety. Mm-hmm. I had people like Frank Sinatra, who is he's like my OG. I call him,
Love him.
I love Frank,
yes.
And he's got the voice, the texture, the jazziness to him. Mm-hmm. But then I also listened to people like Christina Aguilera, and I would listen to Alicia, and there's a lot of that pop side to it. Mm-hmm. And so I admired that about it, and I just feel like the music that I've been making is a little bit of a fusion of all that. Mm-hmm. And so call it pop jazz.
I love it. How did you find your voice? Because you have a very distinctive, strong voice. How did you find your voice? Was it you're singing from a little girl, or where did it all start?
Yeah, so I originally started by doing musicals in school.
You got casted as Annie as a little girl. I saw that. Oh my God! Yes,
it was crazy. I look crazy with these eyebrows.
You look just like her, honestly. With all the wigs and stuff.
They put those little freckles, little red freckles everywhere. But no, I started by doing that because when I was in school, in elementary school, they made everybody kind of do the show, like the shows, and you would get cast as anything. You'd maybe in the choir, whatever. I ended up getting cast as Annie. And then when I got cast as Annie, it just really opened my eyes to being on stage and how much I love singing and how much I feel comfortable on stage and the acting and just performing and entertaining and putting on a show for people. So then when I was 11, I started to write my first song, just to try, let's see what this is about, And then, from that point on, I started, I had to really find my voice because, musicals and what I'm doing now is significantly different.
Very different.
It's very, very different. So I played around I have a very versatile repertoire. I did take voice lessons from about age 12 to 18. Mm-hmm. And I would say that going through all that, it just always came back to this is where I shine the best. Mm-hmm. And because I have this texture of my voice, this gritty, raspy thing, I loved it so much. Wow. And so, yeah.
What was some of the hardest parts from going from, doing musicals to transitioning over to being an artist? What was the hardest part to switch? Yeah.
I mean, it's different in the sense of even when you're on a stage, it's like when people say film acting and being on stage, it's different because it's no cut. You're there. You're doing everything live. If you mess up, you keep going. And I feel like even vocally, musicals are much more the acting, but also the vocals is very I don't know, just extra.
Right.
The drama, the dramatics of it all. And I think I always still kind of have a little bit of the drama on me, But it's a lot, it's a lot different. So I had to, manage figuring out listen, this isn't the same thing. Mm-hmm. But when I would sing, and I would sing covers of even Frank or anything like that, I kind of just noticed okay, this is how you deal with this vibe. And I think by studying different artists, you kind of get an idea of this is how it is to be an artist.
Right.
Versus this is what it's like to do, a musical.
Yeah. If I had to switch from musicals to being an artist, I probably would be yelling in the studio, really projecting my voice really loud. The producer would probably be all right,
No, for sure. And I have a very, honestly, my voice can be very powerful.
You're Armenian. Hello. Yes. I'm Greek. We talk loud normally.
True. Growing up in my house, it was
yelling.
Are you kidding me, dude? everything.
Yes.
Like my mom, sometimes I still like, I love you, Mom. Sometimes I would still like be with her, and we'll be in the car, and she picks up the phone. She's like, hello? And it's like, Mom, like we're in the car. Like you don't have to be. She's like, it's my normal voice.
Right,
What?
right,
You know, it's
right.
like, it's just how they talk. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So let's get into that. So you're Armenian, but you also have a lot of other things that you're mixed with.
So I'm half Armenian. That's on my dad's side. My mom's side is a Sephardic Jew, which means that she's a Jewish person from the Middle East.
Wow, okay.
And we actually speak Russian fluently.
Wow.
That's just because of the placement of where my parents were in their country. It's back when Russia was like a superpower, and they would go around enforcing their language everywhere. So that was my parents' mutual language. And then when they came to America and had me, my mom, my dad was working, my mom was home with me, and she taught me Russian was my first language.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I speak it still like fluently with them. You know, if I ever need to speak it anywhere else, it's like very, very easy. I can read it too. And,
Insane. My cousin, so I'm Sri Lankan and Greek, and my cousin on my Sri Lankan side, which is my dad, her boyfriend is Russian.
Okay.
So speaks it, all of that, you know, looks completely like Russian. You could definitely tell. And they recently went back to visit, and because like the whole war and everything that's going on, like he had to like go to like Jordan instead, because like if he goes in, he's gonna be drafted to the war.
wow.
Which is insane.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I know you're not Russian, but you speak
But
it. But
I get it. And the culture still translated. Like a lot of the cultural stuff that Russian people would do, it's like my family, we still would do certain things that are similar.
What about the food? Like family, like Christmas and Thanksgiving. I'm not gonna lie, he brings something like the food is a little different. The Russian food. It's like you got like a lot of like vinegar based like salads. Yes, pickled. Yeah,
man.
everything is pickled.
Everything. It's like they'll pickle tomatoes.
Yeah.
You know, obviously pickles, and then cucumbers. Well, that's pickles, but
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
it's just so many different things that will
Yeah.
just be pickled foods. There's a lot of like when you go to a Russian restaurant, the vibe there is like an 8-course meal. So you'll come in, they'll already have like a bunch of little appetizers out. It'll be like the pickled stuff and some salads, and then like it'll come out, you know, the first course, and it'll be some kind of a chicken dish, or you'll have soup, and then you'll have, you know, shish kebab and like this and that. And so I think it was interesting because the fusion of food that we had was Russian cultured, but there was also, I had the Armenian culture too. My dad would make the shish kebabs, and then, you know, my mom had some stuff from her culture too. It's just like, it's just very interesting. I was in a very like different fused cultural food, everything household, you know?
Yeah.
And I grew up like celebrating Christmas and Hanukkah because my dad's Christian, my mom's Jewish. So it was just like very interesting. Like I'm very versatile. I call myself a Rubik's Cube. There's like a lot of different parts to
all
me.
these different sides of you, and you just got to figure it out.
Yeah.
You got to figure it out.
Hey, you'll always have a good time.
Right. What side are you going to get
What
today?
personality are we going to get? I'm surprised I'm not a Gemini, honestly.
So what is your sign?
I'm a Taurus.
I love Tauruses. My dad's a Taurus.
Yeah, what are
Mommy's
you?
a Taurus. I'm a Virgo.
Oh, that's my moon.
Oh my
Okay, very
gosh.
cool.
And I know Taurus and Virgos were very compatible. Like it's a
Yeah.
very compatible
Earth signs, yeah.
Yes. I'm huge. Like if I'm going to date you or we're going to be together, we have to be compatible.
Oh.
Because I've dealt with Sages, and Virgos and Sages are not compatible. And it's just like a no. It's a no for me.
Yeah.
It's a no for
I
me.
feel
So
you.
how do you feel your culture has influenced your music?
Well, it's interesting because I also did listen to a lot of cultural music growing up. And not just like Armenian or just Russian. Like my family, it's interesting because they would listen to like hits from like Greece and from Italy and from Spain. And so I think that sometimes when I write melodies, I do sometimes catch myself like doing similar things that I've heard, and then I'm like, where have I heard? Like, and I'm like, oh, this is definitely from like some song that like I've heard my dad play in the car, you know, a million times. So there's a little bit of that there. I catch myself for sure, like seeing it.
What about like when picking beats and sounds from, you know, the Armenian culture?
Yeah.
And
I don't really use, I would say, there's an instrument in Armenian culture called the duduk, but I don't use that in any of my music. I think I mostly stay away from that. I mean, it just never really felt like it made sense in my music. But I do respect all of it. I think it's all very beautiful and all the different types of music. Every culture has its own like instrument or sound or something. Yeah.
What about like your fan base? What would you say most of like your fan base is? Have you tried to tap into that side of the world?
I haven't ever really tried to tap into that side. I mean, I've definitely done some interviews with like Russian TV and stuff like that, which was interesting. But I would say a lot of my fan base is more American. Started off because I'm from Philadelphia, so I had a lot of Philly cats, you know, out there. And then randomly, like at some point when I would be putting out music, like I would have people like, you know, all from the U.S., you know, so it was never really particularly from like Russia or Armenia or anything. But I do think that Armenian, especially people, when they find out that you have any percent of you that's Armenian, they're super like, diehard, I will support you no matter what. They don't care.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you came from Philly to LA. How long have you been in LA for now?
I've been in LA for about 4 years now.
Wow. Time flies.
Right
before the pandemic, right?
Dude, like literally 5 months before the pandemic. I come here and I'm like, here I am.
and
then 5 months later, it's just like, it was crazy.
So what were you doing during the pandemic?
I was at home. It's like, you know, unemployed, like trying to figure out what is happening. Yeah. It's like, what is going on? You know, my parents had to help me out at the times. I'm like, dude, I just moved out here. I am not coming back to Philadelphia. Like, I don't do that. I'm just the type of person, I'm like, we're here, we're staying here. That's it. I'm not going back. And just survived, you know. It was a weird time for sure. And I feel like even when the lockdown started to just kind of get lifted, it was still kind of weird out here. You know, it was everywhere was still like, some places were open, some weren't. Stuff was still kind of very slow.
Right.
And so it was just me like trying to make content at home for like online, I guess. Started like messing around with TikTok and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So what about like the connections and the networking and all of that coming? Did you meet people from when you were still in Philly through social media? When you came out here, you kind of already knew people to work with. How did that all work?
So when I came out here, it was very fresh for me because I had just left management and a production deal that I had from people that I was working with out of New York. And we had a 2-year contract. The contract ended and I didn't want to continue it. So I moved to LA. It was very like fresh, brand new, everything starting over. I tried to work with a few people from LA. Like I just kind of like went out to networking events, met some people. I felt like they didn't really fully get me. And then the funniest thing happened, which is like somebody that I knew that saw me at an open mic like 10 years ago back in Philly, moved to LA and hit me up and was just like, hey, I just moved out here with my wife and you know, I see you doing your thing and like, why don't we go for a hike and just talk music? It was a producer.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, you know, I really do believe that everything happens for a reason.
100%.
Because just when I met him, like not met him, but like reconnected with him, was when something didn't work out. Something blew up in my face with a different producer that I was working with. And I felt like they kind of did me dirty. And I was really, really upset. And I'm like, man, what am I going to do now? And it's like every time I feel stressed out or something about that, something better kind of comes along. And so I went on this hike. His name is Dilemma. And basically, you know, he was just like, look, I like your sound. I think that we could, you know, create something really nice. Why don't we try? And I was like, I'm down. And honestly, I'm really happy about it because I do think that he got my sound.
Wow.
And so it was very much like, there was a point where I started experimenting and kind of leaving from doing the pop jazz. Just because I was like, let me just see, like maybe I should try, you know, doing something else. And it always would come back to pop jazz. Always would come back to it. Like I knew this is what I should be doing, but nobody seemed to like get it. You know, everybody tried to make me be something else than I am. So then, I started working with Dilemma. And basically this past year, we've been locked in the studio, creating a bunch of new music, creating, you know, my whole story and kind of putting that out there into the recording studio and recording all these songs and developing me, and it's just been definitely like a really big blessing for me.
That's amazing. What would you say is like some of the favorite records you guys have like created together, whether they're out already or not out already? Give us some exclusives.
Well, nothing's out yet, but I definitely love there's a song called Love Bomb. It's about, spoiler alert, love bombing. All my music has to do with like basically you know, going through, I want to say like heartbreak, but in a way where I was in all these I was going for these emotionally unavailable guys constantly. Like after I dated this one guy for 3.5 years and I moved to LA, started meeting all these emotionally unavailable guys, and I would stay longer than I should have.
Oh, we all been there.
Yeah, but it's not pretty. Yeah. And so I wanted to write about all of it and how it kind of it forced me to look at myself and be like, okay, I keep staying in these situations. What's going on? Like, maybe I got to love myself a little bit more. So I feel like it's like an arc of that and going into the idea of, you know, the journey to self-love. And I call myself the queen of romantic mistakes because like I just would keep going for these dudes. Yeah. And then later, you know, when you like time goes by and you kind of look back at it, you're like, what was I thinking?
Right.
Like, it's crazy.
We're nurturers, you know, we want to fix these broken men. And
I know, it's true. It's true. Yeah. I have like that thing where I'm gonna fix you. It's like when you realize you can't do that. So a lot of my time this past year has also been like, you know, venting about that and writing about that, but also like really healing. Yeah. And so that's a lot of my music it's almost like that journey of like getting to that point where you're like, okay, I think it's time to like really work on myself and love myself more.
I always feel this, and I want to know, do you feel like every time you get out of a relationship and you're like, okay, I'm going to heal, I'm going to work on myself, I'm going to stay single, and whenever you say that, that's a time like Mr. Who Seems Perfect comes along and is like, hey, I'm here, be my girl, and you're like, no, I wanted to be single and just chill.
Dude, it's terrible because I had this really bad habit where like I'll have something toxic happen, it ends, and then I'm like, okay, it's time. I'm going to heal, I'm going to whatever. And then like a couple weeks later, you meet somebody else and I realized that I started to like jump from person to person. And right now currently is like probably the most single I've been in a while. And I'm happy about it because I'm like, I don't want to be that girl that has to like jump from someone to get over the last person. And then in reality, you're just holding whatever you felt from the
still
situation.
Stalking their Instagram page and dealing with this guy over here and still looking at his page every single day, seeing what he's doing.
Exactly. And I don't want to do that. So I was like, nah, that's not for me. I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
So,
Outside of that, learning that, what would you say? It could be your last relationship, two relationships prior to that. What did you learn from one of your past relationships?
Honestly, I did learn what real love is. I will say that. I think that I've only had one time in my life where it was like I really can say that I was in love with somebody and it was a healthy, at least in the first 2.5 years, it was very healthy. But it was one of those things where you don't have to question, does this person care about me? Does he love me? Do I love him? When people say like, you know, you'll know when you're in love, and I would always be like, what does that mean? You know, but then it actually happens and you're like, oh, I see. This is my safe space. This is like, so I will say that because at least, if anything, especially now when I look back on all these other lame dudes that I've been dealing with, I'm kind of like, you know, I got to always remind myself that I do know what real love is. Yeah. So I shouldn't be sitting here thinking about like this guy that hurt me and then we're stalking them.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? For what?
So toxic.
It's toxic. It's just like, what are we trying to gain from this? You know, it's like some kind of a closure or like maybe it's the idea of rejection. I don't know.
Or are they still tweeting about me or thinking about me? I think that's what it really means.
Do they move on? Yeah, you know, like it's your ego talking. Yeah.
Is he having fun with her like he used to have fun with me? Are they doing the same thing that they used to do with me? Yeah.
That's like, seriously though. Like that's honestly, that's what it is. So I think, I don't know. That's it.
Man, relationships. I always say this, but then people are like, no, like I always say relationships are hard. And people are like, no, like relationships really aren't hard. If it's hard, like you're probably in the wrong relationship, right? And one thing I was always really big on, I was like, you know, the guy has to make, you know, a lot of money and, you know, be super successful. And, you know, I can't, you know, be making more money. And I turned 30 last year and I'm like, now I'm at a point where I'm like, honestly, like, I just want to be happy. Like, as long as you're not like a bum, right? And you're like, don't have a job and you're just like, you know, got some screws loose. As long as you're like all the way there mentally, emotionally ready and you got some kind of job, some kind of career and can at least afford to pay the bills, like, I just want happiness. I don't want to have to worry about, where he's going, what he's doing, why he's out late at night, who he's with, checking his phone. Like, it's the toxicity. And I know we've all been there. You've probably gone through the phone. I've gone through cell phones. And it's just like, I want to be with someone that, like, I don't feel like I need to go through your phone. Like, don't 100%. Give me that feeling. You know,
that's the most important thing. I think ultimately, like, I'm a very much like a ride or die type chick. That's like I've always been when it comes to friendship. I'm like very loyal. You know, friendships, relationships. I'm a very, very loyal person. I will go to bat for you, like if I care about you, if I love you. And so I think loyalty is the most important thing for me. And I agree with you 100%. Relationships aren't easy. Nothing in this life is easy. And I think that I was talking about like dating in LA is very interesting because I think there's a lot of options or the illusion of options out here. Yeah. And so especially with social media, I think there's a lot of guys that they see all these girls and like, all right, whatever, like I'll go get another girl. But then eventually their emotions get caught up to them and they realize like, yo, that one was a real one. Yeah. And I lost that. Yeah. But it's like, really, you have to go through all this to get to this point? Like we already know we're out there suffering. Meanwhile, dude's out there like trying to move on with his life, and then he realizes it later, and that's just the way it goes. And it's just like, damn. Yeah.
the way I talk about like dating in LA is like it's like a kid in the candy shop, right? It's like, ooh, that looks good. Ooh, that looks good. Ooh, that looks good. But in reality, for those of you that have probably never been to LA, never visited LA or whatnot, or think like, oh my God, LA is so cool. A lot of times the men, women too, you know, let's be fair. It's all an illusion. Like, it's like from social media to what you see in person, like it's not like real. It's really like Hollywood, right? People put themselves out there to be something that they're unfortunately not. And I'm not just, it's definitely probably not only LA, right? I'm sure there's other parts of the world and that deal with that. But I think just really like realizing like what's real and what's fake, and you know, not paying attention to the materialistic things. In LA, people can get very materialistic. Oh, they're wearing this designer, they have this watch on, or they got this going on. Like, I said to myself, I want a normal guy. I want a guy who's just normal job, nobody in the industry. Like, leave me alone. If you're in the industry, like, get away. So as an artist, would you say that you would prefer somebody in the industry? You prefer somebody not?
I would prefer somebody not, to be honest with you. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I've seen also people that are in the industry, let's say it's an actor or whoever, and there's this weird competitive thing that starts not from my end.
I've heard that before.
Yes, it's weird. You get booked on something or something, and then the person's kind of acting weird, and you're like, what? I can't deal with that. I don't want to deal with that. Yeah. I honestly would rather just have somebody that's just more normal. And more normal, I'm saying, you know, they could be like somebody that's not like an artist, you know, or not necessarily a producer, or just somebody more as has a less like out in the limelight type of job. Because I also think it's just they don't have to understand every single thing as long as they respect you and your space. And like I remember, like, you know, I've had a boyfriend where I would tell him like, listen, I'm going to the studio tonight. I'm going to be in the studio for a few hours and I'll be home. And it was never an issue of like, who are you going to be with? What time are you coming home? It was like, all right, you know, because there's a trust there, and trust is everything. And so I think that ultimately I do like the idea of not having to necessarily deal with. I'm not going to like rule that out completely. Like if I meet the love of my life and the person happens to be somebody,
exactly.
But I would prefer to not.
Yeah. All your exes are probably watching this like, damn, I'm lame and I'm
you on the spot.
This and I'm that, and she didn't really want to be with me for real. Like, damn. Oh my God, sorry y'all. It's love. You know, she still got something.
No, it's all love. Listen, I don't wish. Honestly, I'm not. Hate is too much of a really big emotion to carry around with you.
Oh, facts.
I don't carry hate. I don't hate anybody who's ever done me wrong. I might have lost a lot of respect for you. I probably don't respect you anymore. Anybody who's actually like really done me wrong. Yeah. Maybe we don't talk anymore, whatever. But I don't hate you. You know, I don't hate anybody.
Why carry that negative energy, those bad memories? Like, I'm just like, I was telling my man the other day, we were talking about something, and he was like, you know, what's one thing that, you know, you don't like about me or whatever, or that you would think I should change or I could change or be better person. And honestly, like, I just have no room for like negative space. So I told him, I was like, honestly, I don't harbor those bad thoughts about you. Like, I don't think about them. Like, he had to like bring it up, like, oh, my tone or something. Because, you know, sometimes guys can have a specific tone. You're like, all right, tone it down. And he's from New York. So I'm like, you know, watch your tone there, you know. But I'm like, I told him, like, I don't harbor that. Like, if I have an issue, I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to talk to you about it. And he was like, well, give me an example of another time that I did it. I'm like, I don't remember. Like, this is how I feel right now. This is right now. Like, I'm not going to harbor all of that bad energy, those thoughts. Like, for what? Like, I'm busy as it is, focusing on my life, my career, my business, what I got going on. My brain capacity right now is like 30% to like add extra shits. Okay. I ain't got the time. Like, I told him one day, I was like, if it was all of this, honestly, I would be single. Like, just let's be peaceful. And I was talking in my sleep, telling him this. And he's like, wait, what? Like, you don't want to be with me? And I'm like, no. Like, it's not that. I'm just in my head. I'm like, shit, if we going to be bickering or having this and having that, like, I'll be single. But again, like, no relationship's perfect. Like, you're gonna have your ups and your downs and your sideways and this and that. And, you know, kind of like doing a full circle, you know, back to your song, Love Bombing, that, you know, not out yet, coming soon. I've been through that too, you know, being love bombed. And sometimes that's not all the way healthy either.
Oh, it's definitely no. Listen, there's a difference between love bomb and love bombing and people actually like genuinely wanting to get to know you. There's signs, you know, there's things that people do and say, and if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. I've had an issue with really wanting to like believe my gut. You know, when your gut kind of says to you like something's a little bit weird, I want to believe that that person is who they say they are. Right. Because I'm the type of person that if I'm showing you who I am, that's who I am. I don't sugarcoat. Maybe that's the East Coast in me, you know? I'm
right. Oh, like, facts. 100%.
It's like, you listen, you know? So, but there's people, I just realized it's just not everyone's like me, not everyone's like that. So it's just like you have to understand that people will try and sometimes say what they want to say to try and get what they want to get from you. And the unfortunate thing is I'm like a hopeless romantic. So like once if I don't care, I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. And then I'm like, okay, now I care. Right. Now it's harder for me to step away. And so I've been like, just thinking about that because then you know, sometimes when you look back and then we do the like, man, like, I think I really like this guy. A lot of times it's like a trauma bond. Yes. Too. And that's another song I wrote. You know, it's like all about these terms and these things that we go through with these toxic, emotionally unavailable, narcissistic people that it's like, at the end of the day, we also have to work on ourselves too. Yeah. And it's not that I don't think I didn't do anything wrong for these guys to treat me this way, but I do think the thing that I did wrong was to stay as long as I did. Yeah. And so I've been working on myself heavy to try and make sure that you know, the next thing I get into, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to repeat this cycle anymore.
Yeah, exactly. That's big.
You notice the red flags, you're like, all right, peace. Yeah. You know, love yourself enough to be like, all right, I'm out.
Yeah, this isn't for me. I'm good. Thank you, but no thank you. Right. Man, I could talk relationships all day. I can go down a rabbit hole. Like, I'm, you know, just like you've been through some shit. I've been through some shit. Ladies out there, y'all been through some stuff. Fellas, y'all too. They say fellas are more abused than actually women, but it's not reported. Wow. Which I believe, you know, because if men talk about it, it's like, you know, they're a bitch or they're this or they're that. Like, you know, and as women, like we play around, but we do like, you know, hey, push them, get away, whatever. But we're not strong enough to hurt them. But I mean, if you really think about it, it is true, you know.
There's a lot of guys who they feel like they can't open up their emotional side because that's the way you're not a man. Exactly. You know. Yeah. I don't think that's right, and I think that's unfortunate because actually the suicide rate of guys is like significantly higher than women. And so I was just like, yeah, you know, I mean, I always say like my music's more for women, but honestly it's really for guys too. Like if there's dudes out there going through this stuff, which there are, like you said, it might not be reported as much. It's for you too.
Yeah, exactly. There you go, fellas.
We all go through it.
We love you, fellas. You know, stay strong.
The good ones, the ones who aren't good. Get some help.
The lames. We're not talking to you. We're not talking to the lames.
See a therapist. I saw this one thing once that was like, like when you go on a first date, you ask a guy, so you ever seen a therapist before? And then they're like, a what? And you're like, a therapist? No. And you're like, all right, peace.
All right, I'm out. Yeah. Okay, you're not open to that? All right, yeah.
Like, all right.
No, I agree. Oh my gosh, it was so nice having you. But before we go, I always like to ask artists, if there was one piece of advice that you can give, you know, the younger self, your younger self, or the little girl out there that's watching this and aspiring to be you, or follows you on social media, what's a piece of advice that you would give?
You are good enough,
Mm.
and you are loved.
Mm.
And don't let anybody try to make you feel lesser than,
Mhm.
or make you feel like you're not loved. And I love you.
There
That's
you
what I would tell
go.
myself.
I
I'm
love
like, oh my
that.
God,
Yeah,
no, it's
don't
true.
cry. I shed a tear. That was beautiful. No, it's true. And I think more often than not, like, that little girl needs to hear that.
Yeah.
You know, that little girl needs to hear that, because sometimes, you know, I went through bullying. I'm sure you may have dealt with the same
Sure.
thing. You know, a lot
I had
of little
unibrows.
girls.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I was-
I had hairy, bushy eyebrows and hair on my arms, and I heard it all. Like, I heard it all. So, yes, that's important. I'm so glad that you said that. That is so important. Thank you for sharing that. It was beautiful, you know. So new music on the way.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
So
Working, like I said, I just finished wrapping everything up, so we'll see what the next steps are. But you will hear something soon.
you
for
will
sure.
hear something soon.
Yes.
So it may or may not be love bombing first. Possibly.
May or may not be
Okay.
pushing more towards that, but it might not be. We're gonna see right now what feels right.
I was just
but,
you took the words out of my mouth.
you know.
That's always about that.
feels right.
There you guys have it. This is the playlist, and I had a special guest with me.
Thank you so, Michelle Majors. Thank you
Yes.
so much for having me.
All right, thank you guys.